Everyday people working 9 to 5, saving up that money, trying to survive, investing in the future, trying to be wise, through loving money heroes. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nik Johnson, host of Everyday Money Heroes, and I've reached early retirement. I'm here to provide information on how to obtain financial independence and inspire you through sharing stories of everyday people who are turning knowledge into freedom.
That hustle, always reaching for the sky. We wanna be money heroes, never gonna shy.
Hello, and welcome to Everyday Money Heroes. We provide information and inspiration to people of all ages to take control of their financial journey. I'm your host, Nik Johnson, and today we're going to talk about family planning. Okay. And so in our lives, we have to be very intentional about what we're doing. In our efforts to become financially independent, um, I'd have to say intentionality is one of the hallmarks of those efforts. Intentionality really goes around identifying our goals, creating a plan, and moving forward with that plan to be able to achieve what we like. And so when we talk about intentionality, we talk about intentionally spending our money. We talk about intentionally avoiding debt. And so a part of that is intentionally figuring out how we'd like to plan our families. It just is. There's no way around it. So we're not going to necessarily talk about who you decide to marry or be in a relationship with. At this particular point, we're just going to look at the aspect of family planning and expanding your family. Okay. I want to share some numbers here from Northwestern Mutual. Northwestern Mutual says that from birth to 18, it costs approximately $320,000 to raise a child. Okay. And now, granted, it's some fluctuations in that number, but on average, they're saying $320,000 to raise a child. So that's somewhere over $17,000 uh, per year for a child between birth and 18. Okay. So let's talk about kind of two different buckets. Uh, and I know this might be not necessarily controversial, but I feel like as a community, we need to be informed. Okay. So, first of all, let's talk about child support. It's a real thing, it happens. Okay. When it comes to child support, the average monthly child support payment, and I try to find some information around this, is from 20. So, this data is from 2021 from the US Census Bureau. And so they're saying that the average monthly child support payment is between $430 and $441 a month. Okay. So granted, I tried to find new information, but the last time it was reported from the US Census Bureau was in 2021. So that's the most current information I can find. Okay. And so that's not necessarily based per child. That's just kind of on the average payment. So we can't really say if that's for one child, if for three kids. That's just the average payment. Okay. And so why is that important? Because as we go and we think about our financial independence and our ability to live below our means, when we are family planning, we need to take consideration that that is something that could happen if we're not intentional about what we do. Okay. And if we talk about child support payments, um, that is still considered it's a line item that's around your cost of living. And so those funds is something that you have to take into consideration. And so that's why it's important. Okay, how can we be intentional about that? I'm not going to dig down into the weeds about how we can um, be intentional about it, but we want to make informed decisions about, okay, when do we want to start planning our families? I know in regards to my wife and I, we were intentional about waiting to have our kids later in life because we knew that we want to go ahead and try to get our careers um, off the ground and just kind of get things going and really have time to really focus on each other before we start to expand our family. Okay. And even with that situation, um, we being married, we didn't have to worry about any type of child support payments, but we did have to think about something else, child care. Okay. let's talk about child care numbers, okay? And for those of you who have ever paid for child care, you know that is a bitter pill to swallow. The younger, the more expensive it is, okay? And so, once again, looking at some information, it says that typically for childcare, those numbers are about, so it breaks it up into two different categories. We have infants, so basically kind of from infants up to 18 months, and then it breaks off after that and just kind of calls them toddlers, okay? So data shows that it costs around $1,400 a month for an infant for childcare, okay? So $1,400, okay? Then once they get a little bit older, into that toddler range, it is $900 a month. Okay. And so if you think about that, that is a substantial uh, payment to make. So what if you decide, okay, you know what? We're going to delay, having little ones into we can go ahead and start to pay down some debt that we have. It might be student loans or whatever it is, or just not, even if you don't have those student loans, go ahead and start to invest your money into the market as you go ahead and kind of start to build that money up so that then you can have a nest egg for when you do decide to expand your family and you have to use some of these funds for uh, things like childcare. Okay. And I'm not saying don't have kids, and I understand things can happen, but what we're trying to do, we're trying to be intentional about things. We don't want life to just happen to us. Okay. So we want to be mindful about what we're doing, very intentional, very specific in what we're trying to do. Okay. And so just some additional information when it comes to those childcare numbers. We're going to talk about HHS, which is the Health and Human Services. They consider childcare to be affordable if it costs no more than 7% of a family's annual income. Okay. So once again, that is from HHS. So it's affordable if it costs no more than 7% of a family's annual income. But many reports indicate that the actual cost of a family's childcare is often between 10 to 20% of a family's income for a single child. Okay. And so at that particular point, we're outside of the range of having affordable childcare. All right. And so, say for instance, you are in a situation where it's like, okay, we are going to go ahead and expand our family. So I know that childcare is a line item. How can we still optimize around that situation? Okay, so I got a couple things. I'm going to share some things that I've personally done, my wife and I personally did, and some other things that are just considered to be practical things that you can do to help reduce the burden of childcare. Okay, so first thing you can do is inquire if there's a dependent care spending account. Okay, a DCFSA. All right, and so this allows you to set aside money on a pre-tax basis, and so you can go ahead, you can use that for your childcare. So you can go ahead, you can set money aside, and then you can go ahead and you can use that. Okay, so that is a DCFSA, a dependent care flexible spending account. Okay. Also, what you can do is look at things known as a nanny share. So basically, a nanny share is that you split the cost of a single nanny with one or two families. Okay, so say for instance, you go get a nanny and you go and you have friends say, hey, let's go ahead and almost kind of crowdsource this nanny for all our needs. Okay, so say for instance, you all might say, okay, this nanny's going to come into my home. We're going to drop off everybody's kids. They're going to stay here, and then we can go off to work or whatever we're going to do. Okay. So that's an option that you can utilize. Another thing you can do is maybe stay at home for a little while. Okay, is what I mean by stay at home. So it's a concept just kind of known as bridging. The most expensive is the infant's time. Okay, so is it possible that one of the parents can actually stay at home during that time until that child gets a little older? And then you can have the option of being able to then at that particular point once it goes from that infant to that toddler phase, being able to then go and then take that child to some form of child care where it's not as expensive. Okay. Other things you can do as well when it comes to childcare is rearrange schedules. And before I talk about rearrange schedules, I want to take one step back. Um, what you want to really look at is that I've heard situations or stories where individuals, once they took their kids to childcare, especially like in a husband-wife type situation, or two individuals in a relationship, um, after this individual goes, takes the kid to childcare, look at the actual total cost of the commute to work, back, lunches and everything else, they realize that they really weren't netting a lot of money. And so they literally decide, say, you know what, I'm gonna just stay home until the child gets older or even gets old enough to go to school. And then that's when they'll go back to work. So just kind of, you want to weigh that out as well. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Let's talk about optimizing your work schedules. So a couple options here. One of the things that my wife and I did is that my wife worked afternoons. And so she typically, when she worked out the house, she would work from around 5 to 10 at night. And so literally what would happen is that she would have the kids during the day when I was at work. And then when I came back from work, we would tag off. She would go do her thing at her job. And so at that particular point, we had coverage for our kids the entire time, but we didn't have the burden of any type of child care payments. Okay, so you can do that. So if you can stagger shifts like that, if there's a possibility one person can do night shift, somebody else do day shift, it's really beneficial as well. Also, one thing you like to do is look at a family member. Grandmas, grandpas, meemaws, and papaws are great when it comes to childcare. All right. So see if there's an opportunity for you to be able to actually go ahead, leverage those family members to do that. That'll be beneficial as well. Something else that you can do, there are some companies that have on-premises daycares. And so if you could do that, it helps to reduce the burden of having to go from a point, from your home to the daycare, then to your job. Um, then also there are some companies that actually, as part of a benefit, as far as your benefit package, that they'll actually provide childcare as well, as far as that on site, which is really good. I know some people who have actually worked at nurseries and brought their kids in there. So that way they're actually earning money and also they're having their child being taken care of. So I've seen that type of situation before, which is a win-win. And so also the things that we can think about when it comes to our kids is that this is just a temporary situation, especially when we're dealing with the infants and the toddlers. The thing about it, babies don't stay babies for long. So they will get older. And at some point, they'll get to where, okay, well, now we're looking at putting them in schools. And then we put them in schools. We have to identify, okay, are we trying to go the private school route? Are we going public schools? Are we doing charter schools? So there's a lot of different options there, okay? But the largest amount of overhead for a long time will be from when they're infants to they get to school age. And then you have a bit of a drop off, when they're in the younger ages. And then it starts to pick up a little bit as they start to get, like in middle school, because especially if they start doing activities and stuff like that. But the biggest thing we want to do is focus on understanding that, okay, we have to be intentional about how we want to expand our families. Okay, there are things that we can do to approach that situation informed. Okay, so and that is the goal of this particular episode. I want individuals to understand that there is impact when we decide to expand our families. We want to make sure that we are informed when we start to expand our families. Okay, and that is the biggest thing we want to think about. By no means am I saying that we should not expand our families, but what I am encouraging you to do is to also think about that along with all the other things you're doing around planning your financial journey. We're thinking about, the 401ks, the Roth conversions, the paying down the debt, paying down the student loans, all that stuff is great. But also we want to be informed and being able to understand, okay, when is the best time for us to start to expand our family and think about family planning? Okay, so that being said, this is just something that I want to bring to you for your consideration. Okay. If you have not done so yet, I would just ask that you would like, share, and subscribe. Please share this video with a friend. What things are you doing, by the way, to handle childcare? Okay. Are you using a family member? Did you decide to stay home? Share with us down in the comment section to let us know that. Okay. As I sign off here, I want to thank you for your time. Once again, I am Nik Johnson, and I'm reminding you to trust the process. Have a great day.